In a world increasingly run by technology, leadership remains a human domain. And this is due to our unique strengths and skills that have made us such a successful species. Strengths like creativity, connection, empathy, and integrity. But relying on human beings to lead requires us to acknowledge that we are first humans and then leaders. And there are certain conditions that must be met for a human being to thrive. Maslow's hierarchy of needs offers us a helpful framework for understanding these conditions. As a leader, we want to spend a lot of time on that self-actualization tier. But as you can see, for that to happen, there are a lot of needs that need to be met underneath that before we can focus our energy on achieving our full potential. I want to focus in on the physiological needs, our most basic needs. We tend to hear these described as food, water, shelter, and clothing. But the need that leaders most commonly and intentionally deprive themselves of is sleep. And sleep is deeply connected to our ability to effectively lead. Sleep impacts our physical, our mental, our social, and our emotional health. And I want to focus on that emotional component. One of the principles that we need to embrace for effective leadership is our ability to emotionally regulate, meaning our ability to choose how to respond to an emotion in a given moment versus react to an emotion in a given moment. And the quality and quantity of our sleep is tied to this for a few biological reasons. For example, after one night of sleep deprivation, there's a 60% increase in reactivity to negative stimuli in the amygdala, which is an emotional processing center of our brain. Think about the leadership behavior implications of this. We know that leaders are presented with negative stimuli all day long and asked to make calculated and well thought out decisions about how to respond. We also know that when we're sleep deprived, we fall into what's called a fear bias, which means essentially because we're not getting a basic need, our body begins to exist in a chronic fight or flight state, and the world becomes a much more threatening place. This is shown through a study which demonstrates that we actually interpret neutral facial expressions as threatening when we're sleep deprived. When it comes to brain function, sleep is a connector between our prefrontal lobes and our limbic system. This means that after a night of quality sleep, those prefrontal lobes, or I like to call them the emotional brake pedal, are connected to our limbic system, or our emotional gas pedal. Conversely, when we don't have a night of quality or quantity sleep that we need, those two areas become disconnected, and they start to operate without effect on one another. So, when you're presented with a difficult situation, now the emotional gas pedal is not being affected by the emotional brake pedal, and that's where we see high levels of reactivity. And we need less reactive leaders, more inspiring leaders, empathetic leaders, connected leaders, more human leaders. Sleep is an effective leadership strategy because effective leadership is human-centered leadership. We have to meet our need as a human being before we can thrive at work. And this begins at the top. When a leader intentionally cultivates well-being within themselves, they begin an upward spiral that cultivates well-being in the organization. Investing in sleep is investing in the well-being of your organization. And that is an effective leadership strategy we've been sleeping on.